Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. Today we have a special guest with us. We have Kevin Sharp of Lockup. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Welcome to my living room.
How convenient. So, Kevin, Lockup has a new album coming out, but Kevin, before we talk about that, a lot of us know you from Brutal Truth out of the Rochester, New York area in that band with Dan Lilker. So, Kevin, what was life like as the vocalist of Brutal Truth for all those years?
It's actually really kind of funny because I was just talking to a dude from Canada about it, and it was just like, I don't know, trying to make musical sense out of nonsensical chaos. I don't know, trying to make things cohesive, or because if you take out the lyrics or the vocal parts in it, it just sounds like musical spasms. So it was more trying to make sense of something nonsensical, I guess.
Okay, I almost want to say that makes sense, but it started. So were you sad though when that whole thing kind of ended?
Was I sad?
Yeah.
No. It's obviously, something that you've done for the majority of your life, It's obviously kind of awkward putting it to bed or whatever, but, I still play with Danny in Demonization, and sometimes he plays, and I play a set with him in Lockup last summer or whatever, but and I'm doing a project with Eric Burke right now, so it's not like it's maybe not doing their songs, but like we still see each other, we still do things.
So it's not like a divorce with no contact.
No, not at all. Like, what are we gonna do? I've known Danny since we were talking about Shane. I've known Danny since we were kids, so it's just like, we butt heads like anyone else, but he's, I'll step in front of a car for him, because, these are the closest things I have to brothers and friends. You don't have normal relationships like normal people, or what you would perceive as normal. All my friendships were developed out on the road. So at home, it's kind of, I don't know. Write another record.
Now, is Venomous Concept where you met Shane? How did you meet Shane? He's not like, in this...
Oh, no, I met Shane back in the 80s, when they were doing a tour with Morbid Angel, Bolt Thrower, and Marcus, I think it was. And I went over to check that out, and that's when the Berlin Wall fell. I went and checked that out. And I don't know, man. I met him there. And then he came back over to the States, and they did a show at Phoebe's. And then, I don't know, my house was like a rotating crash pad for Mick Harris, Jesse, Mitch. They all flocked at my house at some point or another. So. And then, Brutal Truth did the Campaign for Musical Destruction tour, 92 in the States. And that was Napalm Death. That was Napalm Death, Carcass, Cathedral, and Brutal Truth.
And now here you guys are again in Lockup. So tell us.
I don't have much left. My brain is total from years of whatever. So I loosely put things together. It was in the early 90s. I can get that part out.
But like I said, hey, you guys are all together. Well, you and Shane back together in a band again. So is that how you got the Lockup gig then, through Shane?
Shane and Nick. Shane and Nick. It's definitely, it's the two titans there. You know what I mean? That's the one thing that's kind of, it's the the good and the bad with Lockup is you got these two titanic personalities that are somehow trying to make something collaborative. It's intense. So, I mean, the end result is pretty interesting band. So, but I like working with big personalities. I'm not too bothered. I sit on the side and take aspects of both. They both have definitely extreme qualities that are worth listening to.
And now in Lockup, is this the first time you're actually working with Nick?
Let me think. Yeah, I mean, we toured with Lockup, Real Truth did, and that sort of thing. But yeah, this is the first time. When I got the gig, it was like they got an offer to go do this show down in Columbia, and Shane was like, "What are you doing on the blah 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 date?" I said, "What month?" And he goes, "This month." And I was like, "Well, nothing." He goes, "You want to go to Columbia?" I was like, "I like Colombian food, totally. Let's go." What are we doing? Because you want to join Lockup? I was like, "Sure, man. Give me the set list." And it was really weird because he asked me to go do it, and Brutal Truth was on the way down to do some shows in Brazil. We had 4 shows down there, and I had like 10 or 11 days to log in a set in my brain before I got to Colombia. And a week of it, I was in Brazil, which there's not a lot of logic being tied together down in Brazil. You're getting your dimwit on as fast as possible. So. It was tough, and then of course after I went ahead and agreed to it, then I find out it's opening up some Venom. I'm like, oh, great, no pressure whatsoever. you get 10 days to figure out a set list. Oh, by the way, you're opening up for Venom.
So I mean, what was it like then for you to step in to a band following Thomas? Was it weird? I mean, did you feel any kind of, new singer anxiety or anything?
No, because Tom is a friend too, though. I've known him since he was at the Gates, and I've known him since he had hair. And, I've known him a long time. And we were always just friends. I mean, Tom is going to do what Tompa does. And, obviously when I was tracking this record, whenever I do a record, or different band, different record, whatever, I always try and pull it apart. And if you listen to the records I do, there's never really the same thing going twice. And phrasing and tones and stuff like that, there's certain aspects that are similar throughout the records I've done, but for the most part, I take the music and I write towards the music and I try and come up with something tonally. And when you join a band that is precious and dear to a lot of people, they're not just Tom, but they're going to be huge fans of Peter. He's very identifiable and unique, and they've had the good fortune of having some really good vocalists. Mm-hmm. And I will never be Tompa, and I'll never be Peter. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I try and do here. The best thing you can do is try and abstain from going too much in that world. And I would say with you take certain aspects, because when you're taking a set list with different vocalists doing different things, you tend to pick it apart a little more than the average listener would. And so you'll take certain aspects, phrasing, or I don't know. You can even the breathing and space and technique and stuff like that. You'll take certain aspects of it, but you'll never be able to dissect that I took it from Tompa. But it's always interesting to really dissect another. Legend's a stupid word, but veteran, I don't know what you would call it, like someone who really knows what they're doing and has a specific thing they're doing. It's interesting to really dissect it and kind of, I'm not too old to learn a thing or two, So, are not too old yet, I guess.
So then is that how you kind of went about preparing yourself or working on this album? You get like they send you the music first, I'm assuming, and then you have to write the lyrics for it?
Yeah, I mean, like, the process went down with both Barker. Like, I would say that what Barker does, he's a mathematician. He's a blasting maniac, but he's also just a really solid drummer. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And everything is exact. There's always a gag going on with drummers that start to lose their wind and stuff like that. The 3.5, 3 1/4, 3 3/4, where it's not. Barker's always on 4. You know what I mean? He's always consistent. So with Barker's precision, I think the difference with this record versus previous ones is that, like, Anton wrote half the stuff and Shane wrote the other half. And they both spent time with Barker writing out specific things, and then he would take it and rearrange it. And even up until, like, when I went in and Kettering last year and tracked my end of it finally, I thought I had it all worked out. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, God, Barker's rearranged it again.
Surprise!
Surprise! There goes that verse. Let me see. Cut, scratch, paste, rethink. But the process went down where they went back and forth, and finally I demoed a few things, and the end result was going over to Kettering with Shane and Russ Russell and just working it all out. Now, Shane had written about 40% of the lyrics. I'd written about 40% of the lyrics, and we had just a swimming pool full of other thoughts and ideas and stuff like that. And it was like the first time in all the times I've done records with Shane that we sat down and actually, worked things. And he was like, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And like we were talking earlier with Truth, it's just like, well, fuck, here's the music. Good luck, dude. And you'd have to make a song out of it. And, oh, my God, it's like a fucking 3-ring circus. You can't figure it out. But with that process of being able to bounce different ideas off of people, it was very interesting, and it worked out interesting for me. Because, I've done, I think that might be the 48th or 49th record I've done. And it was finally, it's like, wow, okay, because you constantly trying new ways of recording or interesting ways of writing music and stuff like that. And it's like, fuck, man, this is weird. This is like the first time I've actually done this, And it was really interesting. And we sat down and we would run through the songs, and I'd be like, I got this. What do you think? And then they'd be like, well, why don't you try with this kind of register, la, 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 la. And then I'd go in and we'd work it out, and we'd try and find something that's comfortable with the music. And therefore, it took Tompa out of the room. Tompa and Peter weren't in the room. It was just like writing specifically towards a song and trying to do something tonally towards that. So, it was a cool experience, and now I'm sort of addicted to it, like that thing I was talking about with Burke, He came down. Him and Bill and Braun used to play in a band back in the day, Rochester, called Lethargy. Mm-hmm. So there was irony. I'd done Primate with Bill down here, and Bill had played in Lethargy with Eric up in Rochester. So the circle is vicious and it's everywhere. And so Brewery had finished the thing, and Shane was staying over at my house, which is down the street from Bill's house, and I built a studio in Bill's basement. So it was like, what do you think if I just get Burke a plane ticket down and we hang out for a week? So now I'm into that process, sitting down with people collectively and writing music and stuff like that. It's like totally awesome. So Lockup was responsible for that, being able to work out ideas with other people's opinions, the clashing that I was talking about with Barker and Shane. It's like it works out. yes, they're brothers. They're going to butt heads, and they're going to curse at each other and say horrible things. But the end result is something brutal, and it's an interesting record to me, at least.
And it turned out pretty darn good, Kevin. So what could you tell us then lyrically about this album? I mean, where did you guys, draw your inspiration from? And is there some kind of a basic theme throughout it or any of that?
Well, okay, so Demonization, I wrote down when the title track, and if you pulled it apart and you looked at the lyrics, you'd say, oh, it's about the American political situation, the electoral process. Of course, when I wrote it, it was like the election was still live and happening, and it was reminding me like this three-ring circus back in the day when California elected Arnold Schwarzenegger for governor, and it was wild, man. Like Gary Coleman was running for governor, and they had some stripper who actually got like 8,000 votes and stuff. It was just like ludicrous. It was like, wow, this is banana fest. Actually, ironic when that election was going on. I was out doing the first Venomous concept record, and I wrote a song about Arnold Schwarzenegger in Buzz Osborne's basement. So there's another circle. Demonization really has to do with like the environment that exists in its current situation. It's not necessarily about Trump. It's not necessarily about Republicans or liberals. It's about the environment that's bred the Sphere campaign, and it's global. It's not just here. You could talk about the Brit exit thing. You could talk about what's going on in France. There's all these weird fractal bits of right thinking, and I'm very forgiving of people's opinions and stuff because everybody has them, and I understand that everyone has opinions, and I'm good with that. I have liberal thoughts and I have conservative thoughts. I don't particularly prescribe to one style of thinking other than think for yourself. But there's a really weird vibe going on in there. That's what demonization is, the culture surrounding the environment we're in right now. It's pretty fucking hot, that's what I'd say. But so there's that aspect of it, and there's a lot of personal stuff. It's not been kind in the last 3 years for me, man. I mean, you said the obvious with Little Truth finishing up and that sort of thing. My father died. My wife's stepfather came in and with dementia, moved him into the house. He died. My cousin down the street's roommate overdosed between my legs. A lot of death. A lot of people fucking dying. And I went through like everything else that everybody else goes through. When you get my age, man, shit's happening. And I can get the email. I don't know how old you are, but I'm starting to get up in my years. And nobody told me that life would become complicated like this. I did a lot of drinking. And, I dried out about 9 months ago, whatever. I don't even remember, but just had to get my world in order, and the song sunk. It was about fucking drinking that last drop. You make a conscious decision. You can either fucking get your shit in order and fix things, or you can fucking drink it down. So it was complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on in that record in terms of thinking and ideas, and Shane's writing is a little bit different. It's more personal experiences that that are all interpreted differently because of the verbiage. So people take their ideas and perceptions out of the records. I choose to lend them to them, make their own choices or get what they need out. I always thought music of same as a book. You know what I mean? The book versus the movie, man. The movie's going to tell you exactly what the story is, but when you read it, you can interpret it, you can understand it in some way that applies to you. And that same thing can happen with music, you know what I mean? sometimes you do these videos and stuff like that, and they try and surmise what a song's about, and you can't really get the story of something broad like this. It's about the hot plate. It's about the culture we live in. It's about how I'm living through it, and how it affects me. And I'm just like everyone else, man. I have my own problems, and everybody has problems.
Absolutely,
and,
that's true.
Yeah.
And what could you tell us also, Kevin, about this album then musically? I mean, what could you tell the listener? What could they expect when they hear this album now musically?
I would say the thing that makes it really interesting is that it's got a certain energy that flows through it. I mean, there's dynamics that go on musically. There's songs like Void that's more traditional metal,
Mm-hmm.
and this chaotic Secret Parallel world stuff that's like full-blown old-school blast beats, machine gun. But the dynamics is what I would say. There's a lot of dynamic going on, but it doesn't really lose the energy. I would never compare it to something like Slayer or anything like that. But you know how Rain and Blood came and went in 28 minutes, and you didn't feel like you were missing a note. Like it was fine. You were fine with 28 minutes. I think it's sort of the same thing. There's a handful of songs that were never put on the record. We consciously shortened the record because it might have been a little too overwhelming to 50 minutes of that. Might just be a little too much toxic. But I would say that musically, there's a little bit of this, that, and the other. There's some old school traditional aspects of grind. There's a little bit of black metal riffing going on here and there, but more importantly, I think it just kind of works around in the areas of all things extreme metal. So, and because those guys all have been in different bands that have done different things, it's cool to kind of collectively throw everything in the pool and see what happens. And
it comes out, and the first thing that stood out for me when I heard the album for the first time was I heard Rototoms on it. So
yeah, well, that's good, Barker, man. That's a classic nod to the '80s, man. There's certain things that are precious and dear to the old farts that, back in the day, and you sit there and you go, oh yeah, Creator and Ventura Hammer and the cymbal punches, and the Rototoms and this, that, and the other, certain things that, from your childhood that are precious, that's cool when it pops out here. You know what I mean?
Well, it was just funny because that's the first thing I heard, and I did this really tiny review, and I put in there, did I hear Rototoms? And Nick saw the review, and he jumped in there, and he was so excited that I heard the Rototoms. He's like, yes, you did. I'm bringing Roto back, and he's posting pictures of Rototoms. It was just kind of cool. And I personally love it because I am an old fart from back in those days.
Yeah, you calling that out just your age. That's who you are now.
So it was very nostalgic, but it fits really, really well in this album also. Now, are you guys doing any kind of tours or shows to follow up the album this year?
Yeah, man. I mean, right now we're doing a thing starting in April over in Europe with the collective Scuttle Puddle. It's Napalm Death Breweria and Lockup. There's a band called Power Trip that's on that bill as well. It's a Campaign for Musical Destruction Europe thing. So it's kind of funny or odd, because that's I started with the Campaign of Music Destruction tour in the States with Napalm back in the day. So it's a full circle thing. So from there, we're back over in the States at some point, given the right opportunity and with the schedule permitting, that kind of thing.
So for people that want to learn more about the band, do you know what some of the best sites would be? I mean, usually people could just go to your Facebook page and find all that out.
Yeah, man.
that's pretty much where we communicate. You know, we all have fan pages and stuff, and I communicate a lot with people from there as well. So, yeah, and I always post whatever's going on, whatever's latest, hit up, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I would say if you can, go out and support music, man, support metal. You know, everyone's going to have opinions and stuff on this, that, and the other. You're not Tompa, you're not Peter, this, that. But, you know, we are a grind, and, you know, that's what I like about the old school metal thing, is that, like, it's very united. People could just step away from the social media for 10 minutes and get back to that thinking. There'd be a lot more interesting music out there.
This is absolutely true. And, you know, the album is great. I mean, for me personally, I just take the album for the album. I don't try to compare it to anything because it's new. It's a new piece of art or a new piece of music or whatever. And you just take it for what it is and enjoy what it is. And you guys came out, I think, with a great album. Of course, I love all the aspects on it. I love Nicholas's work. I love, you know, your voice on it. I love shit. I think everybody as a collective sounded really good in this album. So you must have been happy with the outcome, right, Kevin?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't be more pleased, man.
So there you guys have it. Lockup's new album, Demonization, is available now off of Listenable Records, so you can check out the band's Facebook for more information on what's going on with the band. And Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time out tonight to do this with us, and all the best to you and the band.
Cheers. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your interest.